Hey, it's your friend Christiano, and welcome to the Queer Quest Podcast. Hello, fabulous souls, and welcome back to the Queer Quest Podcast. Now, there was a time in the past that I thought that I was broken. Now, I'm not talking metaphorically. I'm not talking about a cute Pinterest quote version of broken. I mean, I genuinely thought that there was something inherently wrong with me. That I wasn't just different, I was damaged. Because how else do you explain the loneliness that you just can't manage? You know those moments that you catch yourself drinking or pleasing or performing? The way that your body ticks up before you even realize that you're scanning for danger. In a room full of people who say that they love you. And the worst part? You don't even realize it's not your fault until many, many years later. Today, I want to take you through the stages of queer healing. Not the kind of healing that's about slapping some glitter on pain, not the kind where we're told love is love and expect it to be okay. I'm talking about the raw, the messy, the sacred spiral that so many queer people are walking, whether they know it or not. I created a roadmap which is 18 stages of queer healing that has changed how I see my journey, my work, and my future. And today, I want to walk you through it, not like a teacher, but like a companion. Because wherever you are on this path, you're not alone. Now, if you get value out of today, which I truly trust that you will, then can you please do this episode and the podcast a huge favor and help boost it to others in the queer community by liking or commenting or sharing or subscribing or reviewing all of them, as this does more than you may know towards getting this episode and the podcast in the hands of the queer people who truly need it most. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's start with why queer healing is different. Because it's important to say this out loud. Queer healing is different. It has to be. Most healing frameworks, whether they're psychological, spiritual, or self-help, are built around the assumption that your identity isn't under attack. But for queer people, our trauma is often baked into our identity. You can't separate the rejection from who you are. You can't extract the shame from your first kid. You can't pull out the abandonment without remembering the closet you learned to live inside of. We were taught directly or indirectly that our existence was inconvenient at best, disgusting at worst. And so we learned how to perform for safety, how to be likable, agreeable, digestible. We became masters of shape-shifting, not because we were fake, but because our survival depended on it. You know what that does to a person? To spend years adapting to systems, to families, to cultures that were never built for you. It fragments you. And then you spend your adult years trying to stitch the pieces back together, trying to remember who you were before the performance began. This is why we need a queer-specific healing roadmap, because our pain wasn't general, and our healing won't be either. Let's talk about introducing the roadmap now. So I created something I wish that I had decades ago, something I wish someone had handed me the moment I started questioning not just my sexuality, but myself. It's called The Journey to Queer Healing, and it's not a checklist. It's a spiral roadmap, one that honors the fact that we don't move in straight line. We loop, we revisit, we fall apart, and we rise again. Now, there are 18 stages, and no, you don't go through them in perfect order. Sometimes you jump from joy back to grief. Sometimes you think you're done, and then your inner teenager shows up at 3 a.m. with a megaphone. And sometimes you'll be embodying your queer excellence one day and sobbing over childhood rejection the next. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're healing in real time. This roadmap is a reflection of us, our resilience, our complexity, our sacred messiness. Over the next segments today, I'm actually going to walk you through these 18 stages, grouped in clusters that mirror the emotional arc of queer healing. And we've got the descent, the awakening, the reclamation, the becoming, the expansion, and the sacred. And I want you to listen, not just for where you've been, but for where you are. Because healing starts with witnessing. And as we begin the first cluster, which is the descent, I'll take you into the heartbreak, the denial, and the dark night of the queer soul. But I promise you, this story doesn't end in pain. It really ends in power. So if you're listening to this and something in you is already waking up, I invite you to download the free guide, which is called The Journey to Queer Healing, and it's going to be in the show notes. So just click there, click on the resources, and boom, it'll be yours for you to keep forever for free, my gift to you. And make sure you stick with us till the end, where we'll begin the spiral at the only place healing can really start. The pain that you've been carrying for far too long. Every journey begins somewhere. And for most of us, it doesn't start in triumph. It starts in ache. In queer healing, that beginning is what I call the descent. It's the fall into yourself. Not the kind that feels expansive or enlightening, but the kind that feels like everything you've been, used to hold yourself together in the past, it's really starting to come undone. This is where we meet the pain. So, stage one, the pain. Let me take you back a moment. I was 17, sitting alone in my bedroom after an argument with my father. He just told me that after I ended up being different, that life would be harder for me because of who I am. Move forward to 21, and we had the proper conversation of me coming out, and he said it again. Now, the way he said it, it wasn't cool. It was quiet. It was matter of fact, almost loving. That's what made it worse, because he wasn't yelling. He wasn't warning me. Sorry, he was warning me. He wasn't looking at me, he was warning me. And in that moment, seed of pain took root deep in my body. It wasn't just, they don't accept me. It was, maybe they're right. Maybe being me really is a problem. That pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, don't wear that. Don't talk like that. Don't look too proud of who you are. It shows up in subtle ways. The tension in your shoulders around certain people, the internal orbit that you do before speaking, the guilt that follows the joy. We all know that guilt that follows the joy. Now, it's the slow erosion of your aliveness. And this pain becomes the lens through which we start seeing the world until we can't tell the difference between intuition and internalized fear. Let's go on to stage two. This is the denial stage. But most of us don't stay in that pain willingly. We escape it, or at least try to. We move into the denial. This is the stage where we become masterful at pretending. Pretending we're fine. Pretending we're happy. Pretending we're straight. We're binary. We're normal. We're safe. For some, denial looks like overachieving. For others, it's addiction. It's sex, relationships, perfectionism, spiritual bypassing. For me, it looked like becoming everything everyone wanted me to be. Charismatic, kind, successful, palatable. And inside, I was shrinking, smiling through a kind of invisible collapse. Denial is smart. It's a survival tool, but it keeps you locked in someone else's version of you. And the longer that we stay in denial, the more fractured that we feel until the mask no longer holds. Which brings us to the third and most tender stage three, which is the breakdown. I wish I could say I had one big awakening. I didn't. I had about 7 mini breakdowns before I finally let myself unravel. One was after a breakup. One was after being misgendered at work over and over. One was in the middle of a marathon journey that cracked open my path and showed me just how much I've been running from myself. But the real one, the real breakdown, it happened quietly. I was lying on the floor of my apartment in Bali, holding my chest like it was splitting open. No noise, no drama, just the unbearable realization that I'd been abandoning myself for years just to feel loved by people who only ever loved the version of me that wasn't real. The breakdown is terrifying. It feels like failure. Like everything you built, your identity, your relationships, your goals is collapsing. But here's what I've learned. The breakdown is sacred. It's not the end. It's the clearing. It's where the old story burns. So the real one begins. Now, if you're in this stage right now, in the pain, in the denial, in the breakdown, I want to say this clearly. You are not broken. You're ready to become that next version. This descent is not punishment. It's initiation. In this next part of the episode, we're going to walk into the next cluster, the awareness, where the light starts to return and you begin to ask, what if I'm not the problem? Until then, be gentle with the part of you that's unraveling, because it's also the part of you that's waking up. If you've ever wondered, why am I still carrying pain that doesn't even feel like mine? You're not broken, you're brilliant. But brilliance gets buried under years of shame and silence and survival. And that's why I made this. I'm Christiano Green, a queer transformation coach and the founder of Queer Quests. I created a free queer healing guide to help LGBTQA plus souls begin the journey back to themselves. Inside, you'll discover the 3 core stages of queer healing, powerful journal prompts, and a roadmap to stop surviving and start thriving. This isn't some fluffy self-help PDF. It's the spark your soul has been waiting for. You deserve to heal, not just for your past, but for your future. Download the 3 guide now. And if no one ever told you this before, your healing is holy. And your queerness, it's your power. So grab your free guide now via the link in my bio or just comment below and I'll send it to you directly. After the descent, the pain, the denial, the breakdown, something remarkable happens. It doesn't look dramatic. There's no parade, no big rainbow epiphany, but deep inside, something shifts. A whisper rises from the wreckage, and it says, what if it wasn't all your fault? What if you were never broken, just buried? This is where healing really begins, and what I call the awareness. So let's go to stage 4, the awakening. Now, awakening doesn't always look like light. Sometimes it starts in the rubble, when you're sitting in the pieces of your life thinking, what the F just happened? But somewhere in there, you stop blaming yourself, even just a little. You stop assuming the shame is yours to carry. You begin to consider, maybe it was the system that failed you, not the other way around. For me, this stage happened in waves. The first time someone used the word internalized homophobia, and I felt like the air had been knocked out of me, because I realized I wasn't just rejecting the world, I was rejecting myself. And I had no idea I'd been taught to do that. Awakening feels like grief, but it's actually love. Truth cracking the surface for the first time. Let's go on to stage 5, which is the questioning. And then comes these questions, not the am I getting kind? That probably has already happened. This is deeper, existential. It's who am I without the mask? What do I actually want? Is this relationship even safe? Do I like this version of me, or did I create him to be loved? You start realizing how much of your life was designed by fear. How many of your desires were edited to fit in? How many of your friendships are built on you being less than your full self? This stage can be destabilizing because every answer leads to another layer of unlearning. But it's also liberating because now you have access to choice. You're not reacting anymore. You're reflecting. You're reauthoring the script. And for many of us, that leads to one of the most misunderstood but necessary parts of the journey, which is stage 6, the rebellion. This is a part most people don't prepare you for. The part where you get angry, and not just at the systems that harmed you, but at the years that you lost. The love you accepted because you didn't believe you deserved more. The self you buried to be acceptable. And let me be clear, this anger is holy. It's not a problem. It's not your shadow. It's your power coming back online. For queer people, rebellion often looks like leaving a job that required you to code switch, cutting up contact with someone who doesn't get it, but wants credit for trying, wearing your damn crop top, starting therapy, saying no. Actually, that's not okay. The rebellion doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be real. And here's the paradox. We're often taught that anger is unspiritual, But in queer healing, rebelling is what creates space for peace. I remember the first time I told someone, no, I don't want to forgive them yet. I want to feel this first. It was one of the most spiritual things I'd ever said, because this was the first time I chose my truth over their comfort. Now, if you're in the awakening cluster right now, waking up, asking questions, burning bridges and boundaries and old beliefs, I want you to know this. You are not a problem. You are not too much. You are remembering yourself. And in this next cluster, we step into the reclamation, when we begin not just to understand who we are, but to hold who we are. The inner child, the reparenting, the identity work. But for now, in this section, I want to invite you to pause and ask yourself now, what am I waking up to? What part of me is starting to rebel? What truth do I need to let myself feel, no matter how inconvenient? The truth is, you're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to question. You're allowed to rage. And you're allowed to heal out loud. There's a moment on every healing journey where something inside you shifts. Because you face the pain. You've asked the questions. You've rebelled against the story that tried to define you. And then you start reaching for the one person who's been with you all along. You. Not the version of you who performed, not the version of you who kept everyone comfortable, but the you that existed before the world told you who to be. This is the reclamation. It's not just about discovery, it's about reunion. And it begins with a homecoming. So stage 7 is the inner child. You see, inside every queer person that I've ever coached or loved or been, there's a younger self. One who didn't get to express. One who shrank. One who tried to survive silence, shame, confusion, or even danger. For some of us, that child knew that they were queer 4 years old. For others, they had no language, just a feeling of being othered. And for most of us, if we're honest, we left that part of ourselves behind. Not because we didn't care, because we had to. Because survival demanded that we grow up fast and forget that softness that a child has. I remember doing an inner child meditation where I saw myself at 8 years old, sitting on the floor in his Power Ranger pajamas, afraid to speak. And when I looked at him, he didn't need me to explain queerness. He needed me to see him, to say, you're not too much. You're not wrong. You are worthy exactly as you are. This stage can bring up deep grief, but it also unlocks tenderness. And tenderness is a revolutionary act. So let's go on to stage 8, which is the reparenting. Once you meet that inner child, a new truth sets in. You are now the adult that they needed and didn't have. Reparenting is about giving yourself the emotional safety, the regulation, and love that the world withheld. It's not just journaling or saying affirmations, although those really do help, let me tell you. It's learning how to hold your triggers, not shame them. How to give yourself permission to rest, to play, to cry, to dream. It's becoming a parent to yourself that actually sees your needs. Let me give you a raw example. There was a night I binged sugar, like proper spiral recently. And instead of punishing myself the next day, I did go down a little spiral. I paused though. I asked, what were you needing last night that you didn't know how to give yourself? The answer wasn't discipline. It was actually comfort, touch, softness. That's reparenting. Replacing shame with curiosity. Replacing punishment with presence. You're not healing your inner child in theory. You're building a relationship with them. And that relationship makes the next stage possible. So stage 9 is the identity work. Now that you're not running from yourself, you start to ask, who am I truly? This is where the layers begin to fall away. The labels that didn't fit, the expectations that weren't yours, the scripts that you inherited from heteronormativity, whiteness, capitalism, gender conformity. And beneath all that, a being who is complex, who is beautiful, who is fluid, who is sacred. Identity work isn't about picking a label and sticking to it. It's about claiming your right to change, to evolve, to be multiple things at once. It's about showing up queer, loud, soft, sensual, spiritual, angry, tender, without apologizing. And I'll be real with you. This part can be messy, messy AF. Some people around you, they just won't get it. Some relationships won't survive it, but you will. And what you're gaining is this unshakable connection to self. You stop seeking permission to be, you just are. If you're in the reclamation stage right now, meeting your inner child, learning to parent yourself, redefining your identity, know this. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not too complicated. You are remembering the original blueprint of who you are. And from here, we begin to embody. In the next cluster, I'll take you into the becoming, the part where your healing becomes visible in your body, your boundaries, your joy. But for now, take a moment, put your hand on your heart, and whisper something to the younger you who still lives inside. Something like, I've got you now, or I see you, or my personal favorite, I'm not leaving. You ever feel like the world wasn't built for you? Like you were born queer, and then you had to spend your whole life recovering from what that meant to everybody else? Yeah, me too. But I turned that pain into purpose. My name is Christiano Green. I'm a queer transformation coach and the founder of QueerQuest, the world's first personal development platform created exclusively for LGBTQA plus people. We don't just talk about healing or growth and self-love. We live it. We teach it. We queer the hell out of it. I built QueerQuest because I wanted every queer person to have access to the tools, to the teachers, and to the community that helped save my life. And I'm talking emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of it. This isn't just a platform, it's a revolution of self-return. A sacred space where your queerness is celebrated, your truth is seen, and your excellence is activated. So if you're ready to grow, to heal, and to rise as the queer badass that you were born to be, come join us. Your quest begins now. Once you've met your inner child, once you've begun to repair yourself and reclaim your identity, you start to feel something new, something many of us haven't felt in years or ever: agency. You begin to realize, I just don't know who I am. I know what I need to stay connected to that self. This is the becoming, where the healing moves from your mind into your body, your voice, your relationships, your rituals, your joy. It starts with drawing a line, not against the world, but for yourself. Let's go to stage 10, the boundaries. So let's be real. Most queer people weren't taught how to set boundaries. We were taught how to manage other people's discomfort, not our own. We were praised for being accommodating, for not making a fuss, for shrinking when others stepped over us. But healing invites a new kind of clarity. You start saying things like, I'm not available for that conversation anymore. This dynamic feels unsafe. My peace is more important than their opinion of me. And it doesn't always sound poetic. Sometimes boundaries are messy. Sometimes they come out in the middle of an argument. Sometimes they sound like silence. The decision to stop explaining yourself to someone who refuses to understand. I remember the first time I called a family member, I love you, but I'm not going to keep performing for you. It felt like an earthquake in my nervous system, but it was the first time I chose truth over obligation. And that's what boundaries really are: acts of devotion to your own aliveness. So let's go into stage 11, the embodiment. And from these boundaries comes something even deeper: embodiment. You stop just talking about healing and you start living it. It's in how you walk into a room, how you dress, how you breathe, how you choose your relationships, how you let your body rest without guilt. You begin to feel safe inside your skin, which for many queer people is one of the most radical things that we can do. Because for years, our bodies were sites of confusion, rejection, hypervigilance, or even dysphoria. But healing says, I get to be here in this body. I get to move with it, not against it. I get to make peace with my voice, my shape, my sensuality, my expression. Embodiment is the difference between knowing you deserve love and actually letting it in. It's also in movement, but dancing or stretching or touch or breath becomes spiritual. It's not performative anymore. It's intimate. It's you coming back to yourself. Let's go to stage 12 now, which is the joy. And then, almost without realizing it, you start to smile for no reason. You laugh at something dumb. You catch yourself singing while doing the dishes. And in that moment, you realize joy is here. And not because you finished healing, but because you stopped withholding joy until you were fixed. This state is often the most unfamiliar to us because many of us have a nervous system wired for survival. We wait for the next breath. We prepare for rejection before it even arrives. But joy asks you to trust, to let yourself be surprised, to taste softness without guilt, to choose play, to feel pleasure, not as a reward, as right. And joy doesn't mean you've never you triggered again. It just means that your triggers don't own the entire house anymore. It means that aliveness is welcome, that healing doesn't have to be heavy to be real. And listen, if joy still feels out of reach for you, that's okay. It took me a long time to believe joy was mine to claim, not just something that I got to witness in others. But now I know joy is part of the medicine. It's not the destination. It's what fuels us along the way. So if you're in need becoming right now, setting boundaries, learning to embody your truths, letting that joy creeping like sunlight under the door, know that this part is earned, not because you worked hard, but because you finally stopped abandoning yourself. And in the next part of the episode, we're going to move into the expansion, where your feeling begins to ripple outward. There's an integration, there's leadership, and then there's returning yourself again and again to who you truly are. But for now, I want to leave you with this from section. What boundary do you need to set this week, not to punish anyone, but to truly protect your peace? How can you embody the version of you that's no longer waiting for permission? And what's one tiny joy you can give yourself just because? You're allowed to be whole. You are allowed to be radiant. And you are allowed to feel good without guilt. Because you've been through it. The pain, the denial, the breakdown, the awakening, the reclamation, the becoming. You've touched the parts of yourself you've ever lost. You've created boundaries that honor your worth. You've even started to trust joy again. And then something beautiful happens. You stop holding your feeling like a secret. You begin to live it out loud. This is what I call the expansion. The point where your healing isn't just for you, but becomes a gift to the world. So stage 13 is the integration. Integration is when the work becomes woven into your life. You're no longer, just doing healing practices, the practice. You no longer have to remind yourself daily of your worth because your boundaries reflect it. Your relationships reflect it. Your choices reflect it. And yet, you're still learning. Integration isn't about perfection. It's about flow. It's about knowing how to come back to yourself when you fall out of alignment. About recognizing when you're in old patterns without that shame. And choosing to respond to love, not panic. For me, integration looked like this. I stopped being surprised when I responded from my power. Stopped spiraling when I had a setback. I started trusting that even if I cracked open again, I knew how to hold myself. Integration is where you realize healing is not a destination. It's actually a way of living. That leads us to stage 14, the leadership. Once you integrate, something else often stirs, the call to lead. Not in that performative, influency way, not from ego, but actually from soul. Because when you've walked through the fire, you actually know how to guide others through the smoke. You become someone who holds space, shares their truth, embodies their integrity, inspires without needing applause. And let me say this clearly. Clearly. Clearly, I need to say this clearly. Queer leadership is not about being perfect. It's about being present, being real, being willing to go first, to model authenticity, to model vulnerability, and to model possibility. You don't need a platform to lead. You lead in your chosen family. You lead by setting a boundary others were afraid to name. You lead when you unlearn shame, and others feel safer around you because of it. You lead just by being fully you, in a world that still tries to erase you. Now, I remember the first time someone told me, just hearing you speak gave me permission to finally be myself. I actually cried because I realized it's what I needed too. Sometimes our leadership is the very thing that heals the version of us who didn't have one. So let's go to stage 15, which is the return. And after all of it, after the deep work, the breakthroughs, the embodiment, the leadership, there's one final movement in this cluster, the return. The return is not about going backwards. It's about circling back inward again and again. Because no matter how much you grow, you will still be human. You will still be triggered. You will still doubt yourself sometimes. You will still revisit the pain, the questioning, the reparenting. But now you return with tools, with compassion, with wisdom, and every return deepens you. Every spiral inward brings a fuller version of you forward. The return is what keeps your healing humble and your humanity intact. You realize, I don't need to be healed to be whole. I just need to remember who I am again and again and again. So if you're in this stage right now, integrating your work into your daily life, stepping into leadership, even if it scares you, learning to return to yourself, not because you're broken, but because you're home. I really want to honor you. You've become the kind of person that your younger self needed. And from here, we move into the final cluster, the one that speaks to something even bigger than the self. We're going to enter the sacred, which is spiritual connection, queer ancestors, and imagining the future we are here to build. But for now, ask yourself, where in my life am I already a leader without even realizing it? What practices, people, or places help me return to myself? And how can I expand without abandoning my own needs? You are no longer surviving, you are rippling. You've survived closets, shame, rejection, silence, perfectionism, burnout, and heartbreak. But survival was never the end goal. It's time for your queer comeback. I'm Christiano Green, queer transformation coach and the creator of The Queer Comeback, a free webinar for LGBTQIA plus souls ready to heal, ready to rise, and ready to reclaim who the F they are. This isn't self-help, it's queer soul revival. Inside this masterclass, I'll share the 3 things every queer person needs to know to finally break free from society's judgments, awaken their queer spirit, and live unapologetically, spiritually, emotionally, and fully embodied. You weren't born to shrink. You were born to come back louder, softer, fiercer, wiser, queerer than ever. This is your invitation to come home to yourself. Join the Queer Comeback free, live, transformational, because your next chapter doesn't start with shame, it starts with you. Sign up now, link in bio. There's a point in your healing journey where you realize this isn't just about you, not in a way that makes your experience smaller, but in a way that makes it sacred. You realize that healing your queerness isn't just personal, it's ancestral, collective, and cosmic. You start to feel the spirituality of it all, the unseen hands that carried you here, the parts of yourself that return, the futures that are calling your name. This is the final cluster, the sacred. So let's go to stage 16, which is the spiritual connection. Let's talk about something that often's left out of healing spaces, especially queer ones. That's spirit. Whether call it God or source or the universe or the divine, or just a deep knowing inside your bones, whatever you call it. There comes a moment when your healing journey turns inward and upward at the same time. You stop asking yourself what's wrong with me, and you start asking, why am I here? You begin to understand that being queer is not a detour from your soul, it is your soul. There is divinity in your queerness, not in spite of it, but through it. Disconnect from myself in ceremony, in nature, in stillness, in tears you don't understand, in a queer elder's voice, in the whisper of your intuition that says, this life is yours to co-create. You begin to trust something beyond logic. You begin to feel held, even when you're alone. And that connection, it changes everything. So let's go to stage 17, the ancestors. And then you start to feel them, the ones who came before, the queer ancestors, blood and chosen, who may not have had the language, the rights, the freedom, the chance, but who carried the fire away. We carry their unspoken prayers in our bones. We dance because they couldn't. We marry because they weren't allowed. We express freely because they were killed for it. And yet, they are with us. They feel them in your art, in your dreams, in the way that you know something that no one taught you. These are the queer ancestors, from indigenous to spirit people, to ballroom icons, to your closeted great aunt, to the stranger who made eye contact with you across the bar and silently said, you're not alone. Honoring them isn't just ritual, it's resistance. Because every time we choose joy, we choose truth, we choose each other, we're completing what they started. Let's go to stage 18, the queer future. And finally, you look ahead. And the question becomes, what kind of world am I helping to create? Because healing isn't just about us, it's about the future that we dare to imagine. A future where queerness is not tolerated, it's celebrated. Where kids grow up never having to come out because they were never forced in. Where bodies are free, where love has no rule book, where spirituality doesn't exile the queer soul, but originates from it. This is the invitation of healing, not just to survive what was, but to design what could be. You, my friend, are part of that. Whether you know it or not, every boundary that you set, every truth that you speak, every story that you share, and every joy that you allow yourself to feel ripples outward into timelines that you cannot even see. We are healing. We are remembering. We are building a queer future with our very breath. So if you're in the sacred stages now, or something you just touched them for the first time, know this. You're not just healing, for you. You're healing with the past, for the future, as the present. And you're exactly where you're meant to be. So these are my final reflections for you. What does spirit mean to you? Now that you're not filtering it through shame, who are your queer ancestors and how do you honor them? And what vision of the future does your healing make possible? If this journey moves something in you, then invite me to download the Journey to Queer Healing, the free guide that inspired this episode. And that link is in the show notes. We can get all of that stuff handy for you to look at whenever you need. And of course, if you want to walk this healing spiral with community, not doing it alone, QueerQuest Pro is waiting for you. We do this work together, in devotion, in joy, in depth. So go again, look at the resource section and click on that and see if it's right for you. My final words are, you are not behind. You are not too broken. You are not too much. You're on the sacred spiral of queer healing. And you're becoming. It's already holy. I love you. I'll see you in the next episode. Always remember that you've got this. I've got you. Bye for now.